Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, audio seems to be coming through fine. Yeah, okay, welcome back everyone to another Firestorm Studio stream. My name's Pat, and today we're going to be continuing with our A to Z of creatures inside of Zbrush. And we are now on the letter L, which means we're going to be making a llama. Now, the llama in question is actually going to be a little bit of fan art from a movie called The Emperor's New Groove, and we're going to be doing Kuzco the llama. So we're going to be approaching this from a more stylized approach today. And the kind of aim here is to try and get something out that we can be happy with by the end of today's live stream. Polly, hey Polly, good morning to you. Yes, apologies, it's good afternoon from me, but it might be good morning or good evening depending on where you are. How are you doing, sir? I'm doing okay, thanks. I'm doing okay. Thank you, Manic. Thank you. All right. Well, let me just get everything, make sure everything's set up as it needs to be. I do have, as always, folks, I've got a little bit of reference on my spotlight inside of Zbrush, and I then have a whole bunch of other reference on my other monitor that you guys cannot see, just to give me a little bit of extra. A little bit of extra reference. Hey, no name Twitch user. Thank you. Yes, it's a fantastic character. I mean, obviously we could have went with a more realistic llama, but The Emperor's New Groove is just one of those movies that just I think it hits in all the right places for quite a lot of people. It's very funny, very funny, kind of very heartwarming film, and the characters were all excellent. So yeah, a lot of a lot of great memorable lines from it as well. Very quotable movie. A very quotable movie. Okay, right, folks. Well, without further ado, let's get stuck into this. So we are going to be doing this from a more stylized approach, which obviously makes sense because the character itself is quite stylized. Now, one of the things to bear in mind when you're doing stylized work is that it's not necessarily going to be easier than doing realistic. That's something that I think there's a quite a common misconception that stylized work is easier. It's not. In many ways, it can be much harder, particularly when it comes to retopology, because there's certain angles, certain lines that you want to be able to keep in your topology, and that doesn't always happen with standard approaches to topology. So you have to get a little bit inventive sometimes. Okay, so in some cases, stylized characters can take on almost a hard surface approach to how you apply topology. In my experience, anyway. So now, when it comes to sculpting the character, of course, we're not really going to be changing up my approach that much. We're going to be doing standard primitives, just blocking things out and seeing how close we can get to our character before dynameshing it together and then starting to sculpt in some of the detail. But before we actually start blocking it out, there's a couple of shapes that I want to make just to kind of ensure that things are a little bit easier and a little bit faster for me. So, to begin with, I'm going to create myself a polycube. I'm going to draw that out onto my canvas. I'm going to turn on the wireframe. I'm going to hit the Make Polymesh 3D button, and then I'm going to scroll down and choose Initialize. And here, we're going to choose QCube. I'm going to take my Z Modeler brush, and I'm just going to delete all those edges. And then I'm going to add in a few of my own. I'm not too bothered about how accurate I am with this. Just want to get a few edge loops in. And then I'm going to hit subdivide a couple of times, soften this out, go up to geometry, delete lower, then under the deformation, I'm going to hit polish a few times just to smooth it out. Okay, I'm going to move that to the side. Let's go ahead and restart, set that a little bit. Now I'm going to append myself a sphere. So same idea, except this time, I'm going to scale it down, and we're just going to dynamesh this one. So we're going to take our sphere, Go into Dynamesh, make sure that we have the wireframe on just so that we can see how the wireframe is going to look. Hit Dynamesh. That seems to be, that's a suitable amount of geometry that I need. Then I'm going to hold down Control and Shift, go into the select menu here and choose Knife Curve. And drag that out and just slice the sphere kind of in half. Doesn't have to be overly accurate at this point. And then same again, we will go into our deformation tab and polish things off a bit. Now I'm trying to look, I'm just kind of looking at the character here and trying to figure out how do I need to break it up? What kind of shapes am I looking at? So you can see here, this is why I've made myself scale this up a bit. So I've created a sphere here, cut it in half because we can, if we look at this, I can use it for the eyelids, I can use it for the lower jaw, I can even use it for the upper jaw as well. For the cube, we can use that for the overall shape of the head, and then we might need to create a few more shapes for maybe the ears and potentially even the neck. Not sure if I want to do that just now, or we can kind of approach that from a custom in a custom way later on, because I think I've got enough here along with a standard sphere to block out the head for the most part. So just double check the resolution on these. It's okay. We could probably do Z-remesh on this cube here. We're just going to take it and choose half. Keep doing that. There we go. Perfect. Just lowering that resolution. Let me just check on the chat here. Hey Holly, thanks for coming along. Another artist. Thank you. Hey Pete, thanks for joining. So yes, anyway folks, so we've had a bit of a quick intro here. And for everyone that's just kind of popped along, let's just remind everyone what it is that we're working on today. So we are now at the letter L for our A to Z of creatures inside of Zbrush, and we are going to be working on a llama, but the llama in question is going to be the character Kuzco from the film An Emperor's New Groove, or The Emperor's New Groove, and we're doing a little bit of fan art. So we're going to go down a more stylized route here, and we've just taken a look at the kind of shapes that we're going to need for this, and I'm just going to going to kind of emphasize this a bit more. Well, if I can just get this to work. I'm going to hope that this works for me if I can see it on the screen. Bear with me, folks. Not coming up. I'm going to try and see if I can get my pen tool to work here. So I can overlay a few things. Doesn't seem to want to work. Okay. All right, folks, I was just trying to use a drawover tool to see if I could outline a few things for you, but it doesn't seem to want to work today. So instead, we will just do it with the shapes that we have. So obviously we have our half sphere for things like our eyelids, our lower mouth, and our upper mouth. We've got our cube, which we can use for the muzzle, the nose, and we can probably even use it for the neck. And we're also going to use our standard sphere in order to create the shape that we need for the back of the head, etc. And we'll probably look at something like cylinders for the hair, kind of coming down at the back here, and we'll probably make something custom for the ears, I think. All right, so let's get started, folks. Let's get started. So I'm going to append a new cube here, and this is going to act as my center point and my scene file. I'm going to move that to the top and do the initial save. And as always, folks, if you have any questions or queries about anything to do with what it is we're doing today, or just the 3D industry in general, please feel free to reach out in the chat and ask away. So let's just get this saved, llama 1. And now let's get started. So I'm going to hide these shapes for the time being. And I might even pop them into a folder just called shapes. Save. Next. And this is a really helpful thing if you're trying to work a bit faster, and you've already set up the naming convention that you want for your scene file. In ZBrush at the top right, instead of hitting save as or save, you can hit save next, and it's going to just save the next version. No questions so far. Curious how you will approach the fur. Ah, okay, yes. This is one of the most challenging things you can actually do. Oh, Zen Flame, thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. When you're converting or translating or interpreting, however you want to put it, you're creating a 2D character in 3D, it's always going to be a challenge because the actual, what gives the character its uniqueness is the fact that it's in the medium of 2D. Some characters only work in 2D, some characters don't. What you'll notice in the reference that if you look for this character is he's very rarely ever seen straight on. And you'll notice that with a lot of 2D characters, cartoon characters, TV shows, movies. They're rarely seen straight on if they're very stylized because it kind of throws off. It's not the most attractive and pleasing aesthetic to see that character kind of straight on. And during some of the reference hunting I did for this, which involved going through the film as well, again, the only time you really see this character straight on is when he's animated turning his head, like this. Okay. How do you create surfaces like scales or similar? Do you hand paint those, use alphas, self-made or not, or a mix of both? It's a mix. It's actually all of the above. And it's very dependent on the look that you're going for. If you are doing something that's realistic, photoreal, for example, you would want to source a realistic photograph of, as in an actual photo reference of the scales you're trying to create. And if that is high quality enough and you can create an alpha from it, great. But most of the time you would probably sculpt a couple of scales manually and then turn that into an alpha. Or you would create individual scales and populate the character using something like array mesh or some other kind of instancing approach in order to kind of create those scales. And in many cases, you can paint them by hand, sculpt them by hand, or you can just use a basic alpha to get the shape started before you then continue to refine it. Okay, now, how do I want to start this guy? I'm going to scale this up. We're going to start from the profile because that's going to help us get the depth a little bit here. And yeah, so we're going to bring this in to the middle. And I'm going to turn off shapes. And I'm going to start with a Z-sphere. And I'm not going to actually use the Z-sphere to... We're not using the Z-sphere as a... mesh this time. We're just using it as a reference. So I'm going to make sure I have symmetry on. Okay, I'm on ZBrush. Oh, okay, ZBrush is going to be... But what I'm going to do here, folks, is I'm going to make a brand new scene, or a brand new subtool here. Make sure everything's actually center. And we'll do that with here. There we go. And go into edit mode. Clear that off. And there we go. Make sure that I'm in the right orientation. There we go. Then rotate to the side. So you'll notice that at the top right of my canvas, we're looking down at the actual side of this Z-sphere. So that's important because I want to make sure that everything lines up correctly. So now that I know what position we're in, we can look at the front, go into symmetry, and create Z-sphere. We're just going to bring that straight up to the top of the head. And again, as I said, we're just using this as a quick reference. Think of it as an armature. You're doing a clay model. What's this? Makes sense, thank you. I've struggled with this. It's a very challenging thing to do. Scales and or anything like that are always hard. Any time you have something that repeats, like scales, feathers, fur. Thank you very much for the follow as well. Anything like that is going to be really challenging to create. One thing I will say, and DJ Goblino, thank you very much for the follow as well. The one thing I would say though is that when you are doing that kind of work, just prepare yourself for the fact it's never going to look great the first time you do it. These things always take time to learn how to find the way that works best for you, and just the natural practice of having to create something as detailed as that. So let's just now draw out. Oh. Sorry folks, keep pressing all the wrong buttons on my keyboard. I'm just going to use this to block out the proportions. That looks about right to me. Maybe put that one down there. Draw in a couple more just to help with the overall shape. And what this is going to allow me to do, or it's going to make easier for me, is visualizing this character in 3D, getting these proportions into 3 dimensions without having to worry about the details. So this, you could look at this essentially as our first sketch. And we're figuring out how he is going to work in 3D. And here's the thing as well, folks, please reach out, ask questions, ask me why I'm doing things a certain way, and and challenge how I'm doing things. Okay, that's the whole point of learning this. That this is the thing. If you have an instructor, a teacher that says this is the only way to do it, and there's no other way, then they're not kind of giving you the best advice, in my opinion. Because I don't believe that there is only one way to do things. Okay, so you can see already that we're dealing with something that kind of looks like a llama. So I'm going to move this over to the 3/4 view. See how that looks. So now I can start moving this out. So the 3/4 view. And it's unlikely that we're actually going to try and find a specific view that's straight on the front. We're just going to try and interpret how that front of his face would look straight on from our 3/4 views and our side profiles. That's how I tend to interpret 2D imagery. And again, on the kind of topic of learning from various people, this is the thing. There's no one, as I said, there's no one way to learn something. It's all about how you understand it. And that's why you will find that there's so many different people online that are being so kind of kind with their knowledge. They're helping train people and they're passing on their knowledge. And again, it's important to have as much of that as possible because every single person understands things a little bit differently. So if you find someone that makes sense, when they're explaining something and it makes sense to you and it clicks with you, then that's the person that you want to go with. And it's something that I do call the click. And as someone who has taught for over 15 years now, that's probably one of the best things about being a teacher. It's when you're explaining something to a student, something new, or they've asked you a question, and then you just see that little realization in their eyes. You can see it, and it is like a little click, and they go, and that's when you know they've understood it. And there's nothing more rewarding as a teacher than that moment when you go, great, I've been able to kind of pass on a little bit of knowledge. And that's the kind of the joy of teaching. Okay, I'm just going to bring this back a little bit. Right, I think we've got our skeleton. Now we can start building this guy up. Okay. Now, to make my life a little bit easier, we are going to turn this into an adaptive skin, but we're not going to worry about much of the resolution here. I'm going to lower it a bit so it's a little bit less insane. There we go. Turn off Dynamesh and preview it. There we go. And we will just make that into an adaptive skin. Make adaptive skin. And we will append that right in. There we go. We can get rid of our Z-spheres. And now I'm going to recreate that cube for our scene file. And the reason I changed this, by the way, folks, is that when I was making those meshes before, I knocked off the symmetry. And just to make things a bit easier, I decided to start afresh. Okay, yeah. Making sure that I'm not missing anything from the chat, folks. How are we doing? Okay. Yeah, that's looking good. Right, let's do a quick save. So, folks, seeing as we are talking about the Disney, as this is a bit of fan art from Disney film, fire out in the chat. Let me know what's your favourite. Let me know what your favourite Disney film growing up, if you have one. Maybe you have multiple. I will start. Mine is The Jungle Book, closely followed by Robin Hood, and then The Sword and the Stone. So there you go. There's my top three: Jungle Book, Robin Hood, Sword and the Stone. All from around the same era of Disney film. So I'm just going to rename this skeleton, keep everything nice and clean. And we're going to try and do this a little bit slower, because one of the things about this is that doing stylized work like this can be sometimes a little bit quicker, but also quite difficult as well. So, but I decided to focus just on the head so that we could spend a little bit more time talking about the process. What's this? Treasure Island, Fantasia. What was the question? Sorry, Polly. The question was, what was your favourite Disney film growing up, if you had one? Really hard choice. Your choices are understandable. Fantasia is a good one, Pete. I love it. And another artist, Treasure Island? Nice. Treasure Island is underrated, in my opinion. Treasure Island is underrated. Aladdin, another great one. Another really good one from the mid-90s. I'm amazed no one has said Lion King yet. That's normally one of the normal favourites with people, is The Lion King. All right. So I'm going to start with appending in a Z-sphere and Dynamesh. Lower that Dynamesh resolution. And I'm going to change my focal length here to over, I'm going to go for 150. What this will do is it's going to flatten out the camera, but still allow a little bit of perspective distortion. Okay, so it's going to be similar to working in an orthographic view, but we still get a little bit of depth. 101 Dalmatians. That's too dramatic. 101 Dalmatians, Atlantis, Treasure Planet. Brother Bear tops Lion King big time. See, this is the thing. I knew this would spark some good conversation. So come on, folks. Let's find out. What is yours? What is yours? Let the world know what your favorite Disney film is. Some really good answers coming in here. I'm going to append in one of the cubes that I've made, this Cube 3D. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Go away. Okay, instead what I'll do is I'm going to go into Llama here, into Shapes, select it, then go back to my new file, append it. There we go, that's the one I wanted. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to go back, choose the sphere, then go back to my original file and append that. So you can see where they're sitting. They're well off of the center line. So what we'll do here is select it, go into geometry, down to position, We're just going to reset that X position to 0. Same way you would if you were in Maya or Blender or any other kind of DCC. Okay? Now I've got parts that I can start to shape. And what you'll see me do here is I'm going to use just direct observation first. I'm going to use my reference to the left to the reference I have off to the side, and I'm going to build up the shape I need. What we're actually going to duplicate this, I think, so I've got a copy of it. So the outliner might get, I say outliner, sorry, subtool list might get a little bit messy, but we can handle that. Problem. So that's what I want shape-wise. I'm going to use the gear icon here. This is something that you won't have seen me use that often for kind of modeling tasks. But if I go into here, there is something called bend curve. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a bounding box around our mesh. And you can see I have an icon at the front and the back of this. Okay. If I go to the cones here, and I can essentially go over these and hover, and it'll tell me what each of those does. So the curve resolution, if I increase that, it's going to give me a point in the middle that if I click on it, I can then access a few other options, such as squeeze. We can do things like this. We can also scale it. We can also rotate it. Okay. So don't sleep on the gear icon inside of ZBrush. You will be amazed at some of the options that it gives you and control it gives you over your mesh inside of ZBrush, so that you're not having to jump out to something like Blender or Maya to do a small tweak. You can do it inside of ZBrush. So I'm going to use the bend curve here. I'm going to use the scale one just to scale it up, because we're looking for this curve here. Okay. Grab that, hit accept. I'm not going to worry too much about getting that front angle spot on right now. Instead, I'm more interested in this one here, the 3/4 view. So what I can see here is that this, I'm going to have to knock down the sides of this a little bit, but that's okay. I'd rather get the general shape first. So we go into the options again, and I choose deformer soft. That's going to give us what is essentially a lattice deformer. So to access this, if I hold down the masking tool, mask over an area, and then invert it, that's going to let me move one part of it. So I can now start to create the shape I need. I'm going to deselect everything, grab that, so, and then start pulling that down. Then what I'm going to do, oh, my apologies, sorry. Oh, actually, while I did that accidentally, I'm going to show you, if you ever need a little bit more real estate in ZBrush and you're working on, say you're working on a smaller Cintiq or a smaller display, you hit the tab key, ZBrush will go into what's called Pro mode, and that essentially gets rid of all of the user interface, and it just lets you focus on sculpting. Okay, and if you're a fan of using, you know, custom menus or anything like that, you can just work in ZBrush this. Okay, so that's the tab key. Anyway, so this can be a little bit confusing. If I'm being honest, it's not my kind of preferred way. I wish that there was a better way to work with the lattice inside of ZBrush. But essentially you just have to mask out the area you need, and that's the bit that you'll be able to move. Okay, let's go back to the deformer soft here. I'm going to grab these, invert, then I can move it out. So what we're now going for is we're not going to kind of create this shape exactly, but I'm going for that over the top angle. And I'm doing this quite slow as well, folks, just as a point of reference. We're going quite slow here because I don't want to... I want to make it as clear as possible for you. So once I've done that, and I'm happy with that overall shape, I can go back into the gizmo and hit accept. It's looking like Cusco already. Thank you. We're then going to go in and grab, we're going to take these, the head here, and I'm actually just going to slice it. But before I do that, I'm going to hit the duplicate button and give myself an eye about here. So I'm going to look at where the ear is here. So let's bring out the magnifier. Oh, I don't have it on my my shelf anymore. Oops. Where is it? This is the downside, folks, by the way, of having a custom menu in Zbrush. You forget where things go. You know. Where did the lower jaw go? We're not at the lower jaw yet. We're just trying to get this top part. We'll fix this part in a minute. So I'm just going to make sure that I get the eye roughly in place. Taking a look at where the ear comes down. That's how I want to place, you know, the eye. The eye appears to be somewhat halfway between, so it lines up with the mouth. And these are the things that you need to look at. Use the other reference points on a model. It's like a bony landmark when you're doing something anatomical. Use the bony landmarks to kind of figure out where the rest of the structure goes. The same when you're interpreting a 2D design. Okay. Fine. And we'll just mirror that across. We'll merge into one subtool. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to append a cylinder. And for the cylinder, we are going to go into initialize, and we're going to make this into a Q cylinder. And I'm going to take the Z modeler brush here and just add a couple of extra loops just to tighten it up a little bit as it is. And I'm going to use this to block out where the hair goes. Now, you're probably thinking, that looks really weird. The cylinder's kind of getting in the way. Not to worry. I'm going to go into geometry, delete lower. And then we're going to use something called live boolean. I'm always Googling ZBrush where to find button X. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I always forget. I actually was tempted to switch my UI back to the default inside of ZBrush for these streams because I thought it'd be more useful for new users. But I have to be honest, folks, I failed and I thought I can't do this. There's too much when you're on a Cintiq. There's too many times where you're having to like move your arm across the screen and down, and it's just easier to have everything on the right side. So I'm sorry, folks. But what I'm going to do here is we're going to use something called live boolean, and what this allows us to do is to take one shape and use it to cut out a section of another. So let me hide all of these parts apart from the hair. We'll just focus on this for the time. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it, move it out, and scale it up. So I get a shape, something like this. Now, the live boolean button you'll find on the left-hand side of your UI. But when you click it, nothing's going to happen. And that's because we have to set up our meshes. We have to tell ZBrush that we want these meshes to be included within a Boolean operation, right? I was going to use completely terrible English to describe that there and stopped myself. So if I turn that off for the time being, let me see if I can find the magnifier, because where is this thing? Because it's going to be really helpful. If anyone can remember where it is, be quite, because just completely, I'm just lost as to the point, which is really bad. It's been a busy day. Okay, I can't see it. So You'll just have to try and follow along with me here, folks. But if you look at the UI for ZBrush, and in the subtool palette, above each subtool, you're going to have a list of icons. What we want to do here is we want to set one of these icons to be a boolean. Now, I'm going to turn on my polygroups here so that I can see which one I'm switching between. Okay. But what I'm going to do is on the second one at the bottom here, I'm going to move along to the second set of circles. So you have a down arrow and then 3 sets of different could just be my computer. Is anyone else getting echo? You shouldn't be. No, okay. And along these 3 icons, so it's essentially circles kind of intersecting one another. We want to pick the middle one, okay? And with that selected, if I go up to live boolean, you'll see that we get this scanline approach, this kind of, ghosted effect. And if I hit Shift F to get rid of my polygroup, now my object has been cut out. Now if I start turning on the rest of my character, you'll see that it actually cuts out everything above it. Okay, that's why we turned this off, right? Because what I only want to work on cutting out this section so that I have something for the hair. But the cool thing is, if I grab this part at the bottom and I reshape it, ZBrush will update interactively. So it allows me to really shape the object I need. Okay, a really cool feature. And now I can essentially go in and I can adjust. And if I go in, I can grab a taper here. I can actually taper the object itself. So as I taper it down, it's going to have another effect on the surface. And when I'm happy with what I've created here, which I guess I am, see, there we go. Give myself a little bit of extra curve just to work with. There we go. Now, if I go down into the geometry options here, actually no, I'm telling you a lie. Here, under the subtool. So under the subtool palette here, for Boolean, we're going to hit Make Boolean Mesh. Now, in a perfect world, ZBrush is going to go, yeah, no problem, here's a Boolean mesh. And it's going to copy it out into our subtool. But sometimes it might pop up an error saying something along the lines of, the Boolean operation was completed, but there's some artifacts in your mesh. So at that point, you've got to double check that your mesh has come out correctly. Right? But in my case, everything's okay. So there's the mesh there. So I'm going to turn off live Boolean. Go back to my character here, and I'm going to append in this new mesh, and I'm going to delete the others. Now when I turn everything back on, I have my character here, or the starting of my character here. Now we can go in and start tweaking the shape of it with the taper brush. Go. Then we can start using the move brush as well. Now, this is not the only way you can do a stylized character. Okay. This is not the only way. You can do it the way that you find that makes the most sense to you. But one of the hardest things about 3D is breaking down your process. It can be really hard because sometimes you're not really thinking. Sometimes you're just kind of reacting to what it is you're creating. So you might do something, go, oh, how did I do that? I do it all the time, particularly when I'm sculpting. So it's like those happy little accidents that we get while we're sculpting away. So when it comes to then trying to explain the process, it can sometimes be challenging. So that's why I wanted to approach this from a very kind of methodical slow approach just to kind of break this down. Okay, and we'll speed things up. We will speed things up eventually. But for now, I just want to take the time. He looks like an alien moment with his ears. So I'm going to just inflate his ears a bit because there we go. Smooth them down. Okay, folks. All good. Good, excellent. I'm glad the audio is no longer echoing. And I'm just going to continue to tweak the hair here because it's going to help me frame the face. And I can see from this three-quarter view that it goes down pretty straight, like so. Comes out the back. While I do that, I'm just going to use the deformation tab to keep everything a little bit cleaner than I normally would. Okay, so I'm just going to use polish to polish that back. And you can see that's given us really nice looking shape. So let's now go in and do a little bit of housekeeping. So I'm going to call this the head. And this is going to be the eyes. Nose. Did not spell that correctly. There we go. And that's just a standard cube that we've duplicated. We're going to call that the skeleton. Go. Call that hair. Perfect. Save next. All right, let's now take the cylinder here. Use this to shape out the muzzle. Hide this cube. And the cool thing here as well is that, remember, we could boolean out the underside of this. So let's actually do that again, shall we? Let's take the sphere here. I'm going to move it underneath. And I'm going to use this to shape out the bottom of the jaw. We're not going to go for this, for the actual jaw end. We just want to create this nice curve. Just another way to do it. We do like boolean. And hide everything else that I don't need. So it's nice and clear. Now, grab my move brush, and I can actually just start where I've got symmetry on. Yep. Lock my camera. So that I can kind of create that S curve. And this is also a great opportunity for us to look at different techniques of creating meshes inside a ZBrush, and that's really what this series is about. It's about showcasing you lots of different ways to approach your work. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to create a boolean. So I'm going to create a boolean mesh, and then I'm immediately going to delete the parts I've already made and just append in this new mesh. Turn everything back on. There we go. So we can hide the cube there. And now I can start to duplicate part here, and we can start looking at the lower jaw. Take the move brush, make sure I have symmetry on, turn off live boolean. Symmetry's on. turn on AccuCurve so that we get a much sharper pull. Bottom. Hide the skeleton. And then we're going to pull this forward. We take this shape here and we're going to Dynamesh, start reshaping. I take my trim dynamic. In fact, you know what? Let's just use the deformation palettes here. Let's soften that. Perfect. So you can see that we haven't done a huge amount of sculpting at this point. That's okay. That's okay. Use the skeleton here to help with getting the rest of the shape in. Actually use that, the neck. So we'll pull that back, turn off AccuCurve, start shaping this, matching it. Again, we've not done a lineup yet. We're just trying to use our eye. We're trying to train ourselves to create the shape we want without having to rely on tracing at this point. And it's an incredibly important thing to learn to do. And if you don't want to do it inside of something like Zbrush, then, you know, take a sketchbook around with you. Do it outside. You know, if you're going about anywhere, if you're on the train, if you're on the, you know, an airport, take out a sketchbook and do quick pencil sketches of passers-by. It will improve your observational skills to no end. Because what it does is it trains you, you're essentially training yourself to take in most basic and noteworthy shapes of a person or an object and then get that down on paper. He kind of looks like a bug at the moment. Which I'm not, you know, I'm not unhappy about. That's kind of cool. I quite like the fact he's kind of looking a bit like a bug. So, let's now do a bit of sculpting. We're going to take the going to trim off the corners here. Oh, fast. Boom, instantly. And already we can start to see Cusco coming through. Smooth it off. Take the lower jaw. Just, I do have a couple of references here off screen. I'm just trying to kind of make sure that I nail it. The other problem is that with 2D artwork is that the character is drawn as the character is needed to be drawn. That is one of the biggest challenges that you will face, because trying to find the character being on model in the exact same in every single scene is going to be tricky. Okay, so don't feel too disheartened if you're struggling. I'm now going to take the head here. I think I'm just going to slice it. So slice that a little. Hide the eye. Then start bringing this all together. Okay. So the reason I've sliced the side of the head is because the whole shape for his eyeball to sit in kind of rests in this area that I can see. And we need this line here to complete into there. So let's do that now. I'm going to take head and the nose, merge them down. So now they're the one object. We'll do my favorite trick of going into the fog here and hitting remesh by union. Then hitting accept, making sure that I've done what I needed. We can then take Sculptors Pro mode and just very gently blend those parts together. Turn it off. Start to smooth out. So folks, we are just coming up for an hour. Coming up for about an hour. I'm just going to start using the trim dynamic brush. Notice that only this is the move brush and the trim dynamic is all I've really used at this point. And the reason I kind of highlight all the time, folks, is that you don't need to use a lot of brushes in ZBrush to get the effect that you want. Okay. Hide the eyeball for the time being. See how I'm doing with that shape and the hair. Let's see. So I think what I need to do is this underneath, and then we're going to start using the move brush to pull out this part of the face. Grab the trim dynamic and just, oh, I've lost pressure sensitivity. Bear with me, folks. I don't want to be making such rash changes. I'm just going to fill in a bit of the shape here with a clay brush, blend it, and then jump into the deformation palette again, polish. Just keep doing that. A little bit of manual adjustment. Use the move brush again now. We're going to start bringing the brow and a bridge of the nose in a bit. Much thinner. End of the mouth expands out. Okay, we're now going to take the, I think actually what shape? No, we'll use the cube. We're going to duplicate the cube, and yep, stretch that out, bring it down, and use that for the nose. What I'm going to do here is I am going to, let me see, the easiest way. Taper it that way. No, don't think I like that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to use the mask tool. I'm going to turn on polyframe. Just going to mask on half of it, invert it, turn everything back on, and just move the nose in a harsher way. There we go. Soften it all. Oh, I didn't have symmetry on. Oops. Actually, you know what? I've got a better idea. We'll do deformer hard. And with that selected, I'm going to mask out top section and just, that's what I want. There we go. I guess I could also, in here, I could mask out this bit and just bring it up. This is one of the this is the thing that I find a bit annoying about the gizmo deformers. They can be a little bit problematic at times. Right, so I'm just going to move this down now and start bringing it, shaping it out. Be helpful if I turn symmetry on, right, folks? What am I thinking? I think I'm trying to make my life hard. So hopefully you can start to see Kuzco coming through a bit. in a very blocky way, but he is starting to come through. Um, okay. Now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to bring in the overall shape here, and you can see how low resolution that is. And that's okay. I don't need it to be overly high res. I'm going to bring it in and see how close I got. Not bad. Needs a little bit of... We can do a little bit of adjustment here. Okay. Okay, so with that in mind, we are going to first save our scene. And then we're going to go into T-pose mesh. Just to bring everything together. I'm going to make sure that symmetry's on. Lock the camera. And then just be really, really brutal here. And just start moving everything to where I think it needs to be. We're going to ignore the fur, but we're going to take it up to just where the tangent of the fur would be on the body. So. I'm paying close attention to the low resolution of the skeleton as well, using that to guide the overall shape so that we don't end up with something that's really, really flat and square looking. I'm trying to make sure that I keep it as cylindrical as possible throughout the shape. And if you need to, turn on the wireframe. The one area that just isn't working for us is the ears, but that's kind of normal with 2D imagery because similar to the way that Mickey Mouse is always, his ears are always kind of in one direction no matter which way he faces. It looks like it's quite similar with this. Look at the similarity between the ears. They don't even look like they've changed them much. They've just kind of moved them closer together. So we do something like that. And what I'll also do while I've got this in this position, I'm going to mark out a few things. So the nose, actually, let's see if we can pull the nose down a bit more. Grab the standard move brush. We'll just bring that down there. But I'm going to take my damn standard. I'm going to carve into the head roughly where the eye needs to go. And where the mouth is going to go. Rest of it, I'm okay. Just going to move up the part of the face though. And with the hair, we can mask it out and move it back. While it's masked, change the shape of it. Okay folks, we are at 1 hour in. So that means it's time for our usual update for you. So if you are interested in finding out more about what Firestorm Studios do, please make sure you check out the information below our stream here. You'll find links to all of our socials along with a QR code that allow you to get to them a little bit faster. Please do come and join us over on the Discord, where you can hang out with a really cool community. You can share your work, get help if you want it, and you can also find out more about Firestorm Studio mentorships. So if you are looking for a little bit of extra help, or you're just not sure what path you want to take in the industry, and you just need a little bit of gentle and professional guidance, then Firestorm Studios is where you really want to come. Okay, so please do, if you want any more information, best thing to do is to join the Discord and then reach out to the team. And the team also tend to hang around and loiter when we can in the voice channels. So you might even get a chance to ask us a question directly, within reason, of course. and hang out and just kind of soak up the vibes. Um, Tell me you're old without telling me you're old. Um, all right, folks. So yes, please do check out the Discord, check out our socials, and come along and say hi. Okay. So with that in mind, I've got this stuff now kind of roughly where I need it. Now I can come off camera, so I can unlock the camera. Now as I start to rotate it round, really starting to look like Kuzco. And let's now jump out of Depot's mesh. Bring our reference back into the side here. And now we can start refining. Now we're probably going to go back to that to make sure that we can keep our line up. But at the moment it's looking a little bit messy. So I'm going to take the eyeball and just scale it down. Oh, I'll see what I did there. Take. So we'll just bring that to about here. That looks about right. Probably going to end up with a bit of an overlap on the inside. Cartoon characters or stylized characters like this, particularly the Disney ones, tend to have this issue. So down a bit. There we go. And look at that. Oh, it's too small. There we go. The eye is particularly big. And that goes together. So let's take the ears here and clean that up a bit. Let's get them pushed back into the why are you their mask? So what I'm now going to do with this is I'm going to merge all this together, Dynamesh it. So we're going to turn the hair off. I might chop the ears off actually, just to make my life a bit easier. Mutilate the llama skeleton. Mask that out, split unmasked, and then with the ears now separated, we can take the head, lower jaw, that part of the skeleton, ignore the eyes. We're just going to merge that together. Then we'll start actually doing a bit of sculpting, just trying to kind of clean up the overall shape here. So before we do that, notice something that I'll fix. Just going to add in, got the eye here, and right at the back, got this shape here. That's important. We need to keep that in mind. Okay. All right. Now we can bring everything. So let's take the head, merge down, and then merge down again. Where's the nose? Let's get the nose. Okay. And now I'm going to Dynamesh everything together. I've said this before, but sometimes you just have to be brave and go for it. So bring it together. Immediately jump into Trim Dynamic, which is what I'm going to use as my smooth brush. I'm just going to start slowly planing out all the surfaces. Move any hard facets you don't want to see. Try not to use the smooth brush where I can. I don't want to get rid of any structure or any form that I've created. So you can see that there's very little difference in how I approach my stylized characters as how I approach my realistic characters. And I've always kind of approached my work in that way. To me, it's simply something I have to interpret. Whether or not it's a likeness, whether or not it's a concept of a creature, or if it's a 2D sketch. like sorry, 2D drawing like this, or in some cases, and I've had this in my career, literally a post-it note of a fish. I remember one of the first characters I actually had to model for a TV show. The director came over and literally just scribbled it down on a post-it note and went, "I need you to make a fish," and then just let me kind of go go nuts with kind of artistic interpretation based on his little sketch of a fish. It was great. I loved it. Okay, now we're going to start cleaning up the underside here. Be a bit more careful. And then we can start blending in bottom jaw, then start creating where the back of his mandible would be, which is essentially what this part here is, this curve on the face. Do a bit of smoothing, grab the trim dynamic, clean up some of this ugliness that we have here. You have the line that we created for the mouth. What I might actually have to do here is you can see that we've got a little bit of an area that has kind of caved in. We don't want that. We want this to be nice and clean and straight, because that's going to really help with maintaining the stylization. Okay, we want to keep that. We have to add in geometry, we will. It's sometimes going to be a bit of a step-by-step process. You see there that I pulled it out, smoothed it back, and it's introduced a little bit more of that bowing. Well, that's all right. We can just come back. Maybe a little bit's okay, just a slight taper. We don't want it to be collapsed the way it was. Same with the nose. See, the nose is just kind of sitting up there. We've got the front part, but this just needs to be demolished and knocked into the bridge. Switch over to a nicer matte cap for everyone. Something a little bit easier, hopefully easier to see, but punchier. No touchy. If anyone's curious, that's an actual quote from the Emperor's New. I mean, the funny thing is, my favourite character from that show is probably Kronk and Yzma. They are absolutely hilarious. Not only is Yzma voiced by an absolute legend, Eartha Kitt, they are probably just some of the funniest characters I think have ever been put in animation. So what I'm doing here now is I'm starting to blend everything together. For the actually, you know what? I'm going to knock that back. I jumped the gun there. Need to bring this back and then actually create a little bit of a divot for the head. Smooth that back. I don't actually. Good matte cap or not? Ooh, hard to see, isn't it? The quest for the perfect matte cap, so that you can sculpt and everyone can see what you're sculpting. That's actually not bad. We'll use that. And again, folks, if there is anything that looks unclear, or you're like, "Oh, Pat, I can't actually see what you're sculpting," just please let me know in the chat. That's why what we're doing this for, folks. I want to try and help you learn and understand what we're doing. Might actually have to boost up our resolution. And I would just take to take the trim dynamic here and continue to shave off some of the shapes here. Because this is the problem, whenever you're doing an interpretation of a 2D character into 3D, your job is to make it look like the 2D character without just ignoring any of the form that a character like this would have. And that can be one of the trickiest things for an artist. If you want to see some really amazing kind of stuff like this, like really good stuff, you should check out the work of Zach Petrock for Wreck-It Ralph. You do a search online for that. The work that him and his team did for Wreck-It Ralph was crazy. Really amazing stuff. Just using the damn standard there, just to create a bit of an edge. I went a bit over the top with the nose here, but I'm running out of actual topology. So we are going to have to subdivide or something quite soon. But before we do that, we will introduce the rest of the character. So, smoothed. A little bit of indication of the back of the head here. And again, you'd be amazed at how useful it is to introduce some real anatomical detail into a stylized character and then just smooth it away, just blast that that detail away. Better. And if any of you's caught our live review of people's work, you may remember that I'm not a huge fan of cell shaded shaders. Never have been. So it's not something I tend to try and do for this kind of work. But sometimes it can help. You can see now what I'm doing is I'm starting to really try and refine the transition between head and the body here. Or sorry, the face and the body. Just going to keep tweaking. Now, someone asked earlier, I think it was Polly, asked about how we're approaching the fur. For the most part, we're not. We're going to stick with the stylized version of it, and then we're just going to leave everything flat, but we're going to use the 2D details, and we're going to apply the fur in those select areas as tactically as we can. Llama, yes. There's Firestorm Studios coming in with the llama war cry. I'm just going to give him a bit of an eye socket here. Smooth everything back. Let's take a look at how everything looks together. Bring the eyes back in. Ears. Yeah, I think that's starting to look like Kuzco. I don't normally like to blow my own trumpet here, folks, but yeah. So one of the things as well, as I was saying, when you're interpreting from 2D into 3D, you do have to include elements of the anatomy that are not present in the default head. And it's amazing how you go, oh, it doesn't work when it's not there, but then when you add it, all of a sudden it just starts to feel like the character. And that's what I always mean by interpreting. You're trying to capture the character. You're not trying to copy the 2D into 3D. You're trying to capture the character from the 2D and apply it to a 3D version of the character. That's what you're trying to do here. So I'm now going to take the this sphere here. I'm going to rotate it round. Remember in ZBrush, if you're trying to flip something round, if you hold down Shift and rotate, it will give you increments. It'll snap it. Various increments. Make it nice and clean. Same thing you do when you press J on the keyboard in. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I chopped his ears off. Not that I'm into kind of like llama mutilation or anything like that. That to be clear. But that had to happen. But what I'm going to now do from above is I'm going to start reshaping a bit more. Checking the... Yeah, his head is actually quite wide at the back, so we've got the... We have the capacity to change the width of the back of the head. So let's mask this out. So, and then let's just be brutal about this. Soften that off. This a bit more, soften it. Then, so there's a chance, folks, this one might go over the 2 hours. So I hope that's okay, everyone. We might need to, just so that we can try and finish this in one sitting. That looks a bit better too. Yeah, we're going to have to plump out the back here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mask lasso out about here, soften it, and then I'm just going to go into the deformation palette here, everything on, and I'm going to do quick info. That's looking better. We'll probably have to move the bring the hair closer again to the body, but that's not a problem. Let's get those ears out the way. Go into the ears here, and we're going to do close holes and just smooth back shape. Obviously, we have his little tuft of hair, which is fine. We can do that with a sphere. I'm going to grab a Z-sphere, move it roughly into place, scale it down, giving him a little bald spot at the back. That's kind of funny. And I think it's kind of hard to see how many he's got. But he's got a few flyaway hairs. And you know what, actually? I don't think I do want to do that. I'm going to use cube again, duplicate it, and we're going to rotate it at an angle, like so. Then I can bring that here, plot it down, and that's going to give me that more cartoonish. We then slice it, just pop it down the sides. That. So, yeah. What we want. Again, the hair is so different in almost every single piece of reference I've found. So you kind of just have to pick one that you like and go with it. So let's now. So I'm hoping that everyone is following along with this fairly well. Please do let me know if you're not, if something doesn't make sense or need me to go over anything again. Quite happy to. Start pulling. I wonder, yeah, we'll build this up with some geometry. Just build it up by sculpting it. Not cool. They appear to, yeah, they mix in with this hair, so that's what we want. Want that to mix in. His ears kind of come out from back behind that. Get that. Hey Pat, did you get round to my question? I think I missed it. Oh, I think I missed your question, Manic. What was your question? Please ask it again. Sorry, I must have missed it in the. Yeah, ask it again, please, Manic. Sorry about that. Um, oh wow, my tea is really cold. Oh, let's put that down and let's switch to the water. Just take the head and just, I think we're just going to poke that back in, like, worry too much. Lining that. Hey, Kellyon. Thank you very much for coming. Good to have you here. It's nice to have everyone here. Let's just be honest. Nice to have you all here, joining us here on our fun little live streams. Turn off AccuCurve. Okay. I'm going to have to Dynamesh the hair. I don't want it to be... Okay. That. So, I can use this to... If I turn off the dynamic perspective, I can use the cut tool, slice the hair. Get the ears back on. And then the ears, now that I've got that hair in place, I can shift the ears back to where they really kind of should be, which is coming from that section. Let's get that eyelid. Or the eyelid as well. No, don't merge, don't be silly. Okay, save next. Okay, it doesn't like that, so we'll have to save a new version. Otherwise, Zbrush is just going to go at us. Okay, folks, right. My question for portfolio: should I finish the unfinished projects I have that are my own ideas, or should I do new ones from concept? Okay, this is one of those kind of answers that some people might consider a hot take. I would do concepts. I don't think it's beneficial to do your own concept work or your own ideas when you're trying to get work at studios, right? And the reason, I'm not saying don't do your own work. I think people should do their own designs, their own concepts, but working from a concept is going to show a company what you can do when you're given something that isn't yours. Again, I've said this many times before. If you work on something that is your own idea, even if we try not to, we're going to, there's the risk that we make our lives a bit easier by staying within a comfort zone. If you pick a concept, even if you go, oh, I'm really comfortable, I feel like I can do that concept, there's going to be something on there that trips you up, makes you have to kind of think on your feet or learn a new technique in order to get it to work. Okay, so that's why if it was me, I would, put your own personal stuff on the back burner and focus on good concepts, particularly if it's a particular company that you're aiming to work for, a certain style. Say for example something from Blizzard or something, anything from like Warhammer or anything like that. I would follow those kind of concepts, try to make work like that. However, if you're just wanting to be a freelance 3D artist, a generalist artist, then work on your own stuff, because then you're generating your own brand and the own style. So that's how I would split it up. It's kind of a both are correct, but it depends on the path that you're on. So hopefully that answers your question, Manic. And again, you ask another artist, and I guarantee they give you a different answer for that one. That's just my personal take. Okay. All right, why is that there? Oh yeah, that's for the flyaway hairs. So we'll hide that there now. And let's start with cleaning this up a bit. So what I'm going to do as well here is I've got my top, I've got the top lid in, but I'm going to use a different brush. I'm going to use a curved tube snap brush for the lower lid. I just want to fill in this shape here. Don't need to do anything to the stroke because I just need the shape. Need to get the right thickness. That'll do. Not on both sides. That again. No problem, no problem. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to smooth this shape. And we can just see this little part of his I'll ask Heather tomorrow too. Yeah, get multiple. That's the thing, folks, right? If you ask me a question and you either don't like the answer or you're not sure, you want a second opinion, do it. Because every artist will have a different take on it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to go with what makes the most sense to you, what feels right to you. The answer that you get, if it makes you go, okay, that's the answer that makes most sense to me. But one thing I would say is be very careful that you don't go with the answer that makes your life as possible. Okay, I'm all for a relaxed, peaceful life, but the reality of the industry is that it is a hard place to work. So don't make your life easy, folks. Don't make your life easy when you're working. Challenge yourself. Challenge yourself, and the best parts of you will come out, particularly when it comes. Okay. All right. What I'm also going to do here is something I don't normally do, but just for the ease, I'm going to append a primitive here. We're just going to pop this on eye. We're actually going to use a piece of geometry for his pupil. Zbrush would actually behave itself, which it's not. Oh, turn that off. There we go. That's why. Sorry, folks. Not working for me there. There we go. Put that into position. So at this point, I'm fairly happy that it looks like Cuzco. Now we want to try and make it just look a little bit better as I'm totally satisfied with the answer you gave me. No, I didn't mean anything like that. No, I just mean that in general, it's a good practice to have. You know, well, we didn't give him any ears, but it does look like Cuzco. So although we are running out of geometry, we're going to have to dynamesh. So let's take what we have here. We're going to go into geometry, dynamesh, and we're going to do picker. Just increase that a little. Just going to ask this as it's a good question for people to know the answer. Good reel for. Yeah. Oh, that was way too high. Okay, that's better. So as soon as I've done that, I'm going to do a quick deformation polish by feature, just to try and keep some of the shape in there a bit more. And then I'm going to use the clay brush now, lower the intensity, make sure that I have my pressure sensitivity active. Now I'm going to start really cleaning up what it is I've done. We're at 1 hour 35, so we are going to go over, folks, to make sure that we. But I get the impression that some people are going to be okay with it. Smooth back the mouth and the nose. Turn off the occlusion. And let's turn on occlusion again, just to make sure I get the lip. I want the nose, lip to form shape. Go. And I'm going to add in just a little nod, a little node corner of the mouth. Take our trim dynamic and we'll just clean up shape a bit. Because I also need this to have. See, this is a problem, a bit of an issue. So I'm going to just use my pinch brush here. Find it. There it is. I'm going to pinch these together. There we go. That's cleaner. But I am going to have to mask this out because I'm not happy with the overall shape of the top of the lip, top muzzle. Need that to be in a bit. So yeah, let's move. Because when we look at this 3/4 view, it's always going to be really difficult trying to create that effect where we get that nice clean curve at the 3/4 point, but we will do our best to try and replicate that as best we can. Grab the damn standard. Then we'll invert the mask. I'm going to take the pinch brush along the edge of the lip. Nice sharp curve. And then we'll take the move brush and just do a little bit of making sure that the jaw is as clean as it can be. I'll maybe take the soft polish brush. Actually, I'm going to take my custom polish brush, soft polish, and just circle a few of these areas just to clean them up a bit. Go. Again, cleaning this up. Taking the trim dynamic. Again, what I need to do here is I need to make sure that I'm getting this section here of the brow. So this bit has to go down a bit more. Here. Get this area at the back. Take the pinch brush and just pinch that. Grab the move brush, start adjusting the brow, and you take the damn standard here and just roughly indicate where I need that to go. So that's where his brow is going to be. We can do that as either a separate piece of geo or we can sculpt it in, whatever is really easiest for us. Chances are doing it as a separate piece of geometry is going to be the best option. Go in and I'm going to change the shape of the lid. Now, normally I wouldn't do this. If I was doing this as a model that was going to be sent to rigging, I would have done everything in a neutral pose. I would have actually taken the I would have left the eyeballs as spherical as possible, and I would have allowed the rigging team to deal with that so that we could shape the character's expression. I would never be cruel enough to give a rigging department an eyeball that was shaped like that. That would just be, yeah, that would be bad. That would not be. That's not cool, man. No, it is not. I'm going to take the pinch brush again, run it along the edge of the lid. So, there we go. Take the eyeball, push that in. And now we're going to do another. We're going to first do a save next. Then we're going to merge down the eyelid. So, the eyelid, that bit. We're going to merge down the eyelid onto the rest of the head. So we get something that looks like this. Let's do a little bit of cleanup again, just before we do any other work. I'm going to accentuate the shape, the change here in profile, even though it's not there on most of the images. I just want to do that for my own peace of mind. It gives me a visual cue to work from. Okay. Up a bit. Actually, I say that it's actually really thin. The way his body is, that his neck's actually quite thin as it goes down to the bottom. It'd be quite cool at one point to maybe. It would be quite cool if we could turn this either into a 3D print, or I could come back and do the whole body. But for now, I will approach this as though we were going to print it. Why the hell not? I tell you folks, why the hell not? Ask you. So let's just add a bit more oomph to the face here. Lump up the face a bit more. Take the trim dynamic and I'm just going to thin down this. It's working. It's working how I want it. So just now outline. Capturing the forms nicely also reminds me of the knight piece on a chessboard. Oh, cool. Thanks, Polly. Fun fact, I'm actually working on my own chess piece set for a bit of fun. So, not streaming any of that. That's just one of my projects that I have in the background. So yeah, that's thanks. Appreciate that, and I'm glad that I'm glad you think that the forms are coming through. It's good to know. Because again, this is the thing, folks. You know, I might see it and go, yeah, it's working, it looks right. And then you might be thinking, no, it's not. This man's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And at that point, you need to be like, Pat, geez, stop. You're ruining it. So, because fresh eyes, folks, are one of the most important things you can do for a piece. You're working on something and think to yourself, I don't know if it's working or not. You've got to walk away from it or get somebody else to look at it and just be prepared for them to go, oh no, that's wrong, or you've missed this bit, or you've missed that. I think I was actually doing a live stream years ago and we were working on this really cool dragon concept that I found. And I didn't notice until after the stream that I had made the wing like 4 times the size it should have been. 4 times. Not just a little bit bigger, 4 times. So, as you can tell, it affected me deeply. We're going to knock this nose back. There we go. That's looking better. We will fix that in a minute. We don't have enough geometry to really capture those nice, clean, those clean lines that we need for the face. So we'll get that in a sec. We'll focus on the rest of the forms first. Now, the reason that I merged the eyelid is because, well, for one thing, it's important because it's going to be nice, it's going to be consistent and continuous, but I wanted to clean up some of these shapes first. Save next. And what we are going to do is we're going to hit Control and click on our undo state so that we can Dynamesh and then reproject if needed. So we'll go into Dynamesh, grab picker. That's saying 112, so I'm going to push it to 168, take my subprojection to 0, turn off blur. I'm going to try hit and project and see what it gets. Now, what I ideally want to see is I don't want to see any change, but you can see how much that changed. So we're going to turn off project and try this again. Because sometimes project will not actually create a better look for you. You're better off. Actually, do you know what we're going to do? Yeah. We're going to do a high res Dynamesh, so nothing changes. I will do a slight soften on certain parts. Slight smooth. And we still have that control click. And now I'm going to remesh. So together, and then I'm going to subdivide and then project. That's what I wanted. Subdivide it once, maybe twice. Then I'm going to go to Subtool, project, turn off color, change the mean to 12, turn off the blur, and hit project history. Better. Now I can go in and smooth back a lot of these shapes in a cleaner way. We may still go back to Dynamesh, but this is just a step in the process. It's going to let me blend the eyelids in. Leave that brow place. I'm dynamic. Because the thing is, for when we get to the fur sections, we are going to need to use a bit. How are we doing? Okay, we're just coming up for the 2-hour mark, folks. So we are going to continue with this one. We're going to keep going. I will take a small break though. I will take a small break when we get to round about the 2-hour mark. And because I did used a Z-remesher, now I'm able to more cleanly get the eyeball, the lower lid, into the position I want. I think for this, I am going to pull back jaw out just a bit. Actually, if we take our AQ curve, there's actually a much sharper. See, this is what I mean. There's actually a really great image I have where back jaw is jutting out and it's got this really nice sharp angle to it, but it's obviously just been drawn like that for the scene. So I'm going to try and just interpret, like I said, what I see here rather than what I see in versions. So one of the things that I do want to do here is I want to take this jaw back a little and just add a bit more. And then we can grab our move brush, AccuCurve. Curve. We can start tweaking the curves a bit. Another thing that the Z-Remesher is going to allow you to do. So here's the thing, folks. Obviously, we tend to do, or I tend to do quite a lot of realistic stuff because that's what I prefer doing. But if you want to see us tackle, or you want to see me tackle more stylized stuff for some of the creatures that we have coming up, then please do go ahead, check out the Discord for Firestorm, and then kind of, you know, pop in a request, if you will, or pop in an idea. As long as you're respectful and polite, there's no problem in sharing what you think. And that's something to remember. And apologise as well, folks, if you can hear rain behind me, but it is currently, well, we would say here in Scotland, chucking it down. That is the best way to describe it. It's absolutely chucking it down outside. Scotland always misses the memo that it's that it's spring. Are there any letters coming up that you're missing? Yes, I think I'm still trying to decide what I need to do for Q. I've kind of forgotten. I actually need to check my list that I've got. And I'm still looking for Y and Z. However, I mean, I'm open to other ideas for X. At the moment, I'm doing an X-ray, an X-ray tetra, which is a type of fish. We haven't done a fish yet. So that would be quite cool. But again, I'm quite open to other ideas. Just block in a little bit more. I'm going to give myself a bit more volume so that I can knock it back. I do this quite frequently. I will kind of over exaggerate an area so that I can come in and knock it back a bit into where I need it to be. Similar to if you're kind of adding clay to a traditional sculpture, you know, you want to kind of get it blocked in and then you can knock it back a bit and cut more away. Just make sure all of this is looking great. Want it to all line up fairly well. Maybe take a bit of a pinch brush. Got to be very careful when using the pinch brush on Z-remeshed models, okay? Because or models with clean topology. Because what can sometimes happen is that the edge loops and edges can overlap each other. So you've got to be quite careful. I think you're due to have your weather flip with the south. Oh well, that would be good. That would be quite nice. Going into May, get some nice weather. Well, folks, I mean, yeah, I think we're definitely getting somewhere with this. This is definitely coming along pretty well. I'm just going to keep going. But I think what we'll do, folks, is like I said, at the 2 hour mark, we will take a break just for a little while, just to give me a bit of a breather, grab a fresh drink, and potentially um, change my seating arrangement. I'm standing at the moment, so wait a minute. I saw Bloody and Scots are stealing our weather. We're not stealing your weather, really. Well, maybe we are. It's a ploy, you see. This is the thing. It's the long game for Scots. We pretend um our weather's terrible, so we can steal the Souths. I don't know why we would do that, but apparently that's what we're doing. Um, so at the moment, I've just got this completely symmetrical kind of quiff, but obviously we need to make that look a little bit more raggedy. I'm going to use the all weather is now owned by Scotland. Yeah, sorry, folks. I'm going to merge the two hair parts together, and then merge these down. Okay, let's just do that right now. Let's first of all, though, let's auto groups. I'm going to mask this out, invert it. Then I'm going to take the move brush, and before I merge this together, before I actually dynamesh it, I'm going to pull it further back so that there's no gap. Because if I wanted to make this into a 3D print, or printable, I don't want there to be any cavities. And that's something you've got to be very careful about. So, go. And then I will dynamesh it together. Do quite a high res dynamesh. I'm going to do much higher than it probably needs. Maybe a bit. That's better. Do a quick mirror and weld. Clean everything up. And then polish. And start doing our pinching just down the sides. And round. Again, it's not perfect at the moment, but... And again, this model isn't going to be perfect when we're finished with it, but... When you're doing stylized stuff, if you want to, it's important that as you go through your models, try and keep things as clean as you can, where possible. Again, it all depends on how you prefer to work, but it might make your life a bit easier if you're going for a certain. And remember that hard surface approaches in ZBrush are going to help you as well. So making use of ZModeler and the hard and soft polish brushes, harder to get rubbish, and we'll just slice that off. And this bit I'm just going to, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to draw this curve up. Then at the very top here, I'm going to double tap the Alt key, and it's going to give me a nice sharp curve that I can do that with. That's going to cut into that. Now, and soften that off a bit with a bit of polish. Excellent. Take the standard brush. So, start indicating where some of these quiffs are going to go. What's this? Excited for the ZBrush Substance Painter Bridge coming this week. Honestly, no. If I'm being totally honest, I mean, I think it's great if you're a hardcore Substance user. Wait a minute, let me rephrase that. If you're a hardcore Substance Painter user or designer, not substances, no, it's not something I can see myself using a lot of at the moment. And honestly, I have a feeling it's going to be buggy to begin with, so I would rather wait and see what happens with updates to it, so that we so I would be hesitant to use it for anything imperative straight off the bat. And if anyone from Maxon is watching, I'm sorry, but that's just something you have to take into account. And honestly, folks, if you're doing any client work or anything like that, do not upgrade to the latest version of your software. Just don't do it. Okay. Um, just don't do it. Uh, there's a really good reason why if you go into a VFX studio, game studio today, the chances of them using the latest version of a piece of software are really slim, because stability is key, because time is money. And if you upgrade to a new piece of software, new version of ZBrush, new version of Maya, Houdini, doesn't matter really what it is, and it crashes your project, um, you are not going to be in a good place. You're not going to be in a good place, because if you lose a project or something goes wrong, then you then have to explain to your client why your project's late, or why something has crashed. And yeah, as people are saying, that's um remember the days before computer destroying. Exactly. You know, to give new users a bit of an idea, or sorry, new artists, younger artists, okay, to give you an idea, software never used to be updated every single year. It's not. This is a new thing that has come in with the subscription model. Now that's great. The subscription model is actually really helpful in many, many ways, because it allows young artists, new artists, to access software maybe once to try it, the full version, for a month for a much lower price. So that's actually really good, because it makes software more accessible. The downside is that, sadly, and because they have to pay developers and pay the staff that create this software that we use day to day, they have to move to a subscription model, and they have to charge every year. That means that we're going to end up with that's why you end up with more bugs, because it's much harder to kind of find all the bugs in a year than it would be in maybe 18 months, 2 years, that type of thing. To give you an idea, there was a time where ZBrush wasn't upgraded for like 4 years, 4 or 5 years, other than tiny little patches. They didn't really change much. That was back in the ZBrush 4R7 days. That was like 4.7. And people used to moan about it, but I was like, no, this is great. It's like super stable. Um, I thought it was great. So there we go, folks. So yeah, so unfortunately, the new model, while and this is the thing, some things are great, some things are not. There's pros and cons to everything. Sadly, when it comes to subscription-based software, the downside is we get more bugs because the development time is reduced. And here's the thing: if you have a job, right, in your job, if you think to yourself, "Wow, why is it the deadline is so quick? Why are they pushing us so hard? Why are this?" Remember, the people that make your software are under the exact same kind of pressures. They're being expected to get something out the door. They've got to get it out for release. So the next time that your software crashes or something happens, remember that there is people behind that are actually having to, spend late nights developing the software and actually putting it together. And another thing as well to kind of add on to that is that, yeah, sometimes when your software crashes, it's annoying. I get annoyed with it just as much as anyone. But a lot of the time, what it's doing is something pretty impressive. It's pretty intense. I mean, we take for granted how easy it is for ZBrush to knock around millions of polygons, right? Doesn't make it any less frustrating when you lose work, but what it's doing is incredibly impressive. So, just a little thing to point out. Sorry, folks. I'll stop being a grumpy old sod, and we'll get back on with the sculpting. But no, to answer the question, I am not really looking forward to. It's not that I'm not looking forward to it. It's just I'm not like, oh yeah, I can't wait to upgrade to it. But once it gets added and it's a little bit more updated, then yeah. what's this? It's people driven, like people teasing GTA 6 for taking too long to come out. But the alternative is you get the Cyberpunk launch that was a disaster because they rushed it. Exactly. And then CD Projekt Red had to kind of do what they did to really, and they won everyone back, because Cyberpunk is probably still, in my opinion, at this point, is still one of the best titles that you can get. Like one of the best RPGs out there, in my opinion. So, okay. Right, folks, we're a little bit past the 2 hour mark. So what we're going to do is I am going to take a short break, and I'm going to actually adjust so I can sit down for the rest of the for the rest of the stream. I'm going to grab a quick drink and I'll be back really shortly. So yes, I'll let Firestormstudio put a sponsorship note in the chat. All right, folks, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. All right, folks, we're back. Right, what have I missed in the chat? Blood and gut flavor. Okay. Oh, right, lethargy. This, I see. Okay. Right, folks, I am back. I'm now sitting down and I have a fresh drink, and we can continue with the rest of our sculpt. But what I'm going to do is I'm now going to switch back over to a more standard material, because we are going to be starting to think about painting this guy up. So I'm going to use this material here, which still allows me to interact with it from a lighting perspective, and I think I can probably turn off the occlusion. Or what we might do is we might just reduce the occlusion a little bit extreme. But it's very helpful, I've found, and I've had a few messages about it as well on this stream, to do with these streams, and actually on my personal stream, that the occlusion really helps kind of cut through some of the compression when stream is on. So always happy to keep using it. It helps people see. All right, so we do have the ears to deal with, but I'm actually okay with pretty much everything else. I'm quite happy with it as a quick sketch. So I'm going to tighten up some of these. Actually, I can do those later. Any kind of small bits that I feel that we need to tighten up, I can do them later on. I'd rather we had a pretty much finished, more or less finished sculpt. But we're going to take the brows and we're going to knock them back. Not completely. I'm actually going to keep the rough outline, and then I will draw the curve over the top of it. Let's go into the eye here. Mask that out, invert, then, in fact, you know what? Let's just, there we go. And we'll just polish that. There, and then polish the whole eyeball. There. However, we are starting to get a little bit of stair stepping here. Okay, so what we're going to do there is we're just going to smooth it back. See if that fixes it. And if that doesn't quite fix it, we will come back in with exam standard, just outline that. And the thing is, guys, in case anyone's curious, yeah, I've switched over to a standing desk, and it's helped me considerably. I find it stops me, you know, shrimping over my Cintiq more. And in fact, I'm just going to bring the desk up a bit. There we go. That's better. Sorry, folks. Because the more I've started to use my Cintiq, the more I realize, you know what? I can feel myself, you know, getting a sore upper back because shrimping over the desk a bit. So, right, let's see. There is one thing we do need to add, and that's eyelash. We need to do his eyebrow and his eyelash. So let's get that knocked in before we do the rest of the hair. All right, folks, I will try to shut up and just get this done for you. Quit stalling, get to the plan. That's a very old Simpsons quote. Oh, my bad. Okay, I keep forgetting. I'm using I am using subdivisions, so we're going to have to clone out. It's not. I'm going to clone out the body here into its own subtool palette, and I'm just going to delete subdivisions. There we go. And then I'm just going to start manually adjusting this. take the inflate brush and just thicken up part of the front here. And looking from the quarter view to tweak this a little bit as well. So we're just going to inflate these sections up. Grab the move brush with AccuCurve, and that's going to let me create this nice sharp edge. So folks, again, I asked this at the very beginning, but I'm going to ask it again because I'm sure there's some new people in, and I'm sure there might be some other folk that want to add their 2 cents. I want to know what your favorite Disney film was growing up. If you've got like one that not a lot of people remember very well, you know, I'm gonna, you know, for example, Basil, the Great Mouse Detective. Not one of my favorites, but it's one that I don't see people mentioning a lot. And it's Sherlock Holmes, and how is that not cool? And just as a reminder, mine are Jungle Book and Robin Hood. That's my top 2. And then Sword in the Stone is my 3rd favourite. Sword in the Stone. Aye, Firestorm Studios in with some like, nice good taste there. Love it. Atlantis, the Lost Empire. Scrunch. What a great name. I love an onomatopoeic username. I love it. Scrunch. Sponsored by Scrunch. Love it. Okay. However, I do like the Atlantis movies are great. The Atlantis movies are great. Big fan. Another is Robin. Yeah, I think that whole era for me is just some of my favorites. Always have been. It's Shere Khan in the original Jungle Book for me that just, you know, absolutely fantastic character. And that's the thing, you might not have a favourite Disney film. Sorry, Scrunch, I couldn't help it. It's just, it's such a good name. It's such a good name. So, I think that'll do nicely. And I'm now going to say something that apparently proves that I'm over the age of 30. And that's if I use the phrase, "that'll do, pig." So, you know. Apparently if you use that as a phrase, then it means you're over 30. So the internet is so funny with its weird lists. See, I find it a bit of a weird one because that just either means you're over 30 or you've seen the film Babe. So, you know, not very conclusive if you ask. Let's take the pinch brush now and just use that to just sharpen up some of these extra edges, and we'll just clean up the brow this way. Loved Babe. I have not seen Babe in years. In fact, I don't think I've seen it since it first came out. So the next thing I want to do with this is I need to, well, first of all, we're going to invert it, and we're going to do split unmasked. Then I'm going to use the same mesh to the eyelid, not the eyelid, the eyelash. Try and get the words right. Maybe make that a bit thicker. And let's see how they've done it. Yeah, let's. Oops. Perfect. There we go. Might take you a couple of tries to get a really good curve when you're drawing it, but you know, and again, you could potentially, you don't have to do it this way. You could use the frame curve mode to, but I kind of prefer just doing it this way, quicker. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to do much more to this other than mask it out. And then split it. Then we're going to jump straight in, grab the Z modeler brush. Again, like I said, we want to be taking advantage of it. I'm going to take this poly edge, like so, invert, do a poly group. We do the same with the one underneath. Then something like this. Grab this poly group. We don't even need to grab the poly group. We can just use the modeler brush. And in there, we're going to choose poly group all. And we're going to try a couple of but maybe not. Bevel. You know what? Let's trust. Yeah, that's what I wanted. I'm gonna move it out like so. Again, I actually forget a lot of the time, folks, with demodeler. I always have to remind myself a little bit because like to do is scale that non-uniformly, but this is a thing I'm not sure how to do. I'll do an inflate. There we go. Now I've got the geometry I need, and I can just dynamesh it, clean it up, Z-remesh it as I need to. For the eyelash here, I'm just going to pull that in a bit more. Any part that I've missed, why is that not behaving? There we go. There we are. Then if needs be, I can just pinch brush and run it along. I think I'd rather do a quick Z-remesh with that in the shape there. Z-remesher. Hoping that I've got the right one selected. I don't. That's the one we want. We'll try that again. Z-remeasure. Oh, we've dropped a few viewers. Affected though. So let's now just do half. We'll just keep doing half until we get the nice clean shape that we want. Turn off adaptive so that actually halves it. And now we've got our eyelashes. We're going to do the same with this here because we're going to go into dynamic subdiv, hit dynamic. And I think though, you know what? Actually, I'm going to crease this. So we're going to go into geometry, crease, and I'm just going to do crease. Then subdivide it. Oh, wait a minute, what happened there? Oh, that's weird. Don't want those. Oh, okay. I'm going to do a Z-remesh on the geometry here just to clean it up. So I'm going to do same, turn off adaptive, and what that'll do is it should just clean up that geometry a little bit. Not as sharp though. Double. There we go. I can clean that a bit further, and I think what we'll do then is we'll crease Sorry, folks. So I'm just going to increase all. That's what I meant to do. Try to get the crease tolerance right the way I want it, but it's not really working. Okay, we'll just leave it as it is, and I will clean that up a different way when we get back over to our full model. Okay, so now let's append in our eyelashes and eyebrows. So, now we're going to start colouring things. So we're going to take off black. We'll try and get a bit of a grey. We'll do, actually no, full black for the eyes. So I'm going to fill these. So I'm going to go RGB 100. Make sure it's just RGB, fill object. Interesting. Why? Bear with me, folks. Just check something. Yep, that's working as expected. Why is or not changing? Nope. All right. Oh, I might be. Well, these things are sent to testers. Bizarre. Are you not working? Okay, I'm not going to waste any more time on that. I'm going to do a bit of cleanup here. So we're going to delete anything that we don't need. Just rename a few things. And eyelashes. That Z-sphere I'm going to delete because I don't. We've got the hair. So we're going to do the ears now. We're going to work on the ears. These won't take two. Oh, okay, something weird's going on. Right. So we are going to save ZBrush. We're going to save the file and we're going to close down ZBrush because ZBrush is it's behaving badly. It must have heard me talking about how uninterested I was about it teaming up with Substance Painter. So we're going to close down ZBrush and then reopen. Okay. It's telling you to take a break. It is. It is. I mean, we've been sculpting now. Well, we're about half an hour. We might even go over 3 hours, folks. It depends. Because again, I'm not rushing in any particular. I'm not really kind of rushing this. But we don't have much left to do. First of all, we are going to see whether or not there we go, that's what we wanted, folks. Now everything's working as expected. We'll grab the pupils, RGB, 100% fill object. Invert it. We're going to take the whites here and we're going to change the material, the toy plastic. And now I'm going to switch this to mRGB and fill that object with white. Be helpful. Now, if I switch back to the setup material, go. And we're going to do the same black for the eyebrows. And the eyelashes. Switch back to white. And we know the hair is going to be something like that, but I'm going to go for a bit of an off grey for that. Slightly different, just not completely black. And fill object for that. Got body here. Now, yeah, I think we can just stick with it with this as it is. So we will mask most of it out. And then do same color. So grab here, fill object. You know what? I'm just going to bring in, I'm going to load in a texture here. So import and in a reference. Everyone's favorite meme. One of mine anyway. So we'll bring this in. And then I'm actually going to put that on as the image plane. So load that image plane as well. That's so that I can sample color from it. So we're going to take the color here, and I'm actually just going to fill the object. And then I will take the same off black and mask out his face. Oh. And then in the masking tools, I'm going to go to Grow Mask, sharpen it, grow, sharpen, just do a tiny blur, invert, and now we can do a fill. Now we get something that looks like that. We have Cusco. So I'm going to do clear, get rid of the backdrop. And for some of these elements here on the body, remember we put them in just to help guide what we were doing. So I'm going to smooth those out now. And now we can work on the ears. So get the ears now sorted out. So for that, I'm going to bring in the same image we had before, which as you can see, very, very low res, but we will use it anyway. And we're just going to reshape. Lowering the intensity of my brush. Turn on the wireframe if need be. I can inflate that. Also inflate okay, that's fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select those two faces there. Now I'm just going to make a custom selection. Polygroup that, polygroup this, and using ZModeler, I'm going to do an inset on this here. So we're going to do inset, polygroup all, and then what I'll probably do here is, yeah, this, mask it out, smooth it. just to get the quick shape that we want. Oh, oh. Subdivide it once, and then let's do geometry, delete lower. And see how quickly you can work like this. Making sure that we don't have any weirdness at the back. Okay, need a bit of an inflate here just to clean that edge up. And then we can reshape the ear. A little bit of a pinch. There we go. Maybe a little dense. Subdivide it a couple more times, delete the lowers, remesh again. Got that better geometry in there. And now we can continue, kind of approach it in this way. So we can start maybe pinching the edges a bit more, smoothing everything down. We just what we want. Bring in the standard brush. And I'm going to make sure that I've got back face mask on here. Just start bringing in. Into the deformation palette. Start polishing the shape. A little bit of adjustment to the overall edging. Check where it is with the original model. And thin out. There we go. Here. Sculpt back in. Again, oh, we've lost pressure sensitivity, so we need to bring that back. And then we can just might need to lower the ears in a bit. Oh. Then comes the shaping of the ears. That's going to be really important as well. We can, you know what, let's see what happens if put on symmetry and do bend curve. No, it doesn't work that way. So I'm going to delete one of the ears. Oops. Do. What did I merge? Nothing. Okay. Oof, that was lucky. So again, we're going to delete one of the ears. So that's delete hidden. Now I can center that, and now I can go into bend curve. And the thing about bend curve is, if I go back into the options and go back to the Gizmo 3D, if I adjust my Gizmo, I can get a better orientation for that bend curve, like that. Now, I can go in, really bend, shape the ear the way I need it. And the cool thing is as well that each of these points can be tapered or twisted. I can actually scale this down, go to another one, scale it up. You can really inflate and get that kind of look that you want for the character. Squeeze it in, maybe do a bit of a twist. There we go. Perfect. I'm happy with that. We'll do mirror and we'll do a mirror. Merge into one. We will take the same black for the hair. Fill that object. Not sure why I did that. It must have been masked. So try again. There we go. And we'll take the same color from the face. and we'll just paint that in. A bit of overspill at the back. Back face masks on. Now, one of the cool things I noticed in that image was there was a red. They used a red outline for him in most shots. I'm going to go into my light here. You'll notice I've actually got a blue rim light in my scene the whole time. So I'm just going to change the color of that to red to give him that kind of look that we need. Then we're going to take our pinch brush, just finish up some of the shape here. So, and let's also change. Need to do that with symmetry on, that would help. I'm going to take some of these shapes and just tweak them a bit. Clean up the edge a bit so that it's properly curving the way we want. And then take our pinch brush, run that. I'm going to take the paintbrush as well, grab the color that we're working with and just darken it down ever so slightly. We can use that in here. Just to be a bit quicker with just a little bit of quick shading, nothing fancy. How are we doing? Okay, we're almost coming up. That magical time. Just take the pink there and lighten it up ever so slightly. A little bit of a highlight in there. Back to the black. So, the last little thing we're going to do here is looking a bit hard to see though, so just to make everything a bit easier to see, I'm going to change the color of the backdrop. There we go. So the last little thing that we need to look at is how we're going to apply some of these extra fur parts. Well, I'm only going to show you a little bit here, and then it's kind of like extrapolate that kind of approach. So we're going to grab the object itself, grab our curved tube snap brush, and we're just going to paint them out. If I can find the brush, where's it gone? There it is, there. In the size and the curve fall off, we're just going to something like this. And then to get a flatter look to each of the, to get that flat look, we're just going to lower the intensity to 50. Okay. And increase the size a bit. Turn off symmetry, that's important. Okay, did this again. Sorry. We're going to do another clone of this object. And then we'll do them all the things that we need on this shape here. One, two, okay. Unmasked. Then We'll jump back to our original model. End. Oh, wait a minute. Select the right part. Go. Hit append. Grab those. And now we can start working into the model a little bit better. So I'm going to grab my move brush, and the first thing I'm going to do is mask out the very front here, and then move everything into the middle as I go. If we need to, we can do a little bit of an inflate each one. And the key thing here is we don't want them to be completely 2D like this. We need them to kind of be off kilter a little bit. And the best way to do this in ZBrush is to use the polygon, the kind of polygroup masking. So if we go into brush, down to auto masking, at the very top of this auto masking menu, you'll find something called mask by polygroup. So just increase that to 100. And if you have separate polygroups, when you go in and start moving one around, you will only affect that individual polygroup. So for things like this, it can be really helpful. So you can overlap different parts of the mesh. So bring that together. And then I'm going to inflate this part at the bottom because it's looking a little bit thicker and it's a little bit flatter. It's not got as much of a point to it. Then I would take one of them, mask it out, and then I would use Control and click, start adding a little bit of variation to each section. Then the last thing to do for this would, I'm going to sharpen that, give it a bit more of an angular look to kind of keep with the stylization. Go. Maybe take the pinch brush and just sharpen that. So now, what you would probably want to do here is add in, would be to subdivide it again together. Sorry, dynamesh it together again. And then and then kind of do another Z remesh or do a full manual retopology. Okay. But just for ease, I'm just going to fill it with black. And there we have it. It's not perfect, folks, but it's Cusco. It's Cusco. And we've looked at a bunch of different ways that we can put together a stylized character. Again, it's just one way of working, and it's also not the only way that I tend to put together stylized characters. Sometimes I'll jump straight in and I'll just use primitives, similar to the way you've seen me do before. But what I wanted to showcase here today was just another way of approaching a character, and that it doesn't matter if it's realistic, if it's stylized, if it's only from, you've only got one angle of it, that type of thing. If you have a process that works for you, use it. Don't feel as though you have to change up your approach to making something just because it's stylized or it's real. All right. Like I said at the very beginning, to me, I just look at the image I need to create and then I have to interpret it. That's all I look at. I don't look at it if it's of a likeness or if it's a stylized or if it's a concept. It doesn't matter. Use the workflow that allows you to get the results Okay. All right, folks. So with that in mind, I think we should probably finish up for today. Firestorm. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Can't believe it. Thank you. It's been fun, and I think this, to give you an idea, folks, we've spent about 2.5 hours putting this together, approximately. Oh no, almost three. Almost three. But you'd probably expect to do this in about 40 minutes. That's how long it would take without what we call the chat tax or a stream. So this is about 40 minutes, if that, maybe half an hour. Okay. But what I'd like to do is I want to wait, I just found you. You just found this stream. Oh, well, not to worry. There will be more streams. I'm just going to bring up our announcements here. So yes, so one thing I do want to do though, folks, before we head off, is I want to give everyone a sneak peek of what we're going to be starting next week. So let me just move Kuzco, if he will start behaving, off to the side. Here. There we go. And we'll just hit Shift S to put him in place. There we go. All right, folks. M is for, haha, this is the thing, folks. All right, so as I said, what we're looking at here is about 3 hours of work of step by step. If you were to do this just kind of raw with the process I showed, just blocking it out with a skeleton, and then blocking it out with primitives and finding that shape, you're looking at maybe, I'm going to say an hour. An hour would be enough to kind of get this to this stage. And then you can work on it further, you can retopologize it, sculpt it even further, add extra detail. Right? Now, for next week, we're going to hit our halfway point through the alphabet, and was getting loaded, Nicky. A little more in some of the two. Wow, thank you very much, Lion Dog Tanner 94. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. That's what we try to do here. We try to kind of inform and educate and give everyone a little bit of an idea of how different ways to approach creating any type of character inside of your chosen 3D application. Because that's the thing, folks. Everything I'm showing you here, you can apply mostly to other software. Okay, and that's the thing. If you use Blender, if you use Mudbox, if you use Maya, it doesn't matter what you use. You can take the principles, the foundational principles of creating artwork and apply it to your software of choice. Okay, you might have to adjust for certain things because not every software has the same features, but it is something that you can do. So let me just load up the image that we're going to be working on next week. And it's going to... Lion Dog Tanner, thank you very much for the follow. Really appreciated. We are at our halfway point. So let me just, I need to, is it Sam? I'm just going to double check because I want to get the artist's surname right. Sorry, folks, we're, let me go. Let me, oh, I can't actually remember, I think it's, see here. Bear with me, folks. I'm just going to find the artist name because I don't want to mispronounce it. Because the artist in question very kindly allowed us to use his artwork for our stream. So, and it's always really great when an artist's like, yeah, cool, we'd like to see what you're creating. So if I can find him, we should be okay. There we go. Sam Sheeran. Yes. Okay, so the artist Sam Sheeran will be passing on the links next week when we show it, when we start the model. But this is what we're going to be creating. Just going to clear off the background and hide. So this is by the artist Sam Sheeran. It is the Mothman. So it's a cryptid. We're doing another cryptid, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. We're going to be turning this into a 3D print, or something that's 3D printable. That's the kind of goal here, so that it can be printed. And we're going to be focusing obviously on making the lamppost and the creature itself. And this is going to be one of our longer streams for me. Normally we try and knock out the model in one or maybe two streams. I think for this one we'll spend maybe 3 or 4 weeks, or 3 or 4 sessions on it. And I may break a rule here, and I might actually work on this one in between just to kind of keep things moving along smoothly. But yes, very much looking forward to this one, folks. Fully sculpted so that we can, as I said, we can print it. And yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a really fun one to do. So all that leaves me to do is to thank you all for coming along to another Firestorm stream. It's been lovely having you all. I really enjoy getting to share what it is I love with everyone here. And if you are looking for more streams from Firestorm Studios, this week is pretty well packed. So tomorrow we have Carmen doing Houdini workflows from 6 a.m. UTC. Our very own Heather Courage, our very own founder, should I say, is going to be streaming at 1 o'clock tomorrow. And she's going to be back on Thursday at 1 o'clock. And then we've got Carmen again on Friday morning at 6 a.m., followed by Peter at 5 o'clock. And then we have Andre Ferwerda on Saturday at 6 a.m. So if you want to get a full list of that, you can check out Firestorm on all of our socials. Please be sure to check out the Discord and join the community over there as well. All right, folks, I am now exhausted, so I'm going to go and I've got a lot of other things I need to do today, so I'm going to finish up for the day. It's been great having you all here today. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you all next week.